Perhaps the most important resources of any organization are its human resources, which are its people. In fact, some firms live by the philosophy that employees are their most important asset. Superior human resource management, therefore, can set a firm apart. Think about it. If you have a great business plan or product, a competitor can actually easily copy both. Great employees, however, are much harder to duplicate. That's why being able to attract, train, and retain talented workers can give a firm a competitive advantage over its rivals. We will cover these concepts throughout Chapter 11. Because the people who work within the organization are the most important and valuable resource for a business, organizations can spend a great deal of effort to acquire and utilize their human resources fully. This effort is known as human resource management. The actual definition of human resource management is the process of determining human resource needs and then recruiting, selecting, developing, motivating, evaluating, compensating, and scheduling of employees to achieve organizational goals. As your textbook notes, human resource role has grown because there is an increased recognition that the people truly are the engine and what causes a organization to be successful. And also there's changes in law that have occurred. And so a lot of companies in their human resource department now they might have a lawyer on staff because the laws can be complicated, and it's very important that the human resource department within a company is aware of all of the laws and regulations. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 forbids organizations with 15 or more employees to discriminate in employee selection and retention on the basis of sex, race, color, religion, and national origin. The purpose of Title VII is to ensure that employers make personnel decisions on the basis of employee qualifications only. As a result of this act, discrimination in employment has been reduced in this country. Affirmative action is a policy designed to right past wrongs by increasing opportunities for minorities and women. An affirmative action program is a plan designed to increase the number of minority employees at all levels within an organization. The objective of such programs is to ensure that minorities are represented within the organization in approximately the same proportion as in the surrounding community. Unfortunately, affirmative action programs have been plagued by some problems. What would happen is, in order to achieve the goal of hiring more minorities, the companies were forced to consider only minority applicants for job openings. If they would hire non-minority workers, they would be defeating their own purpose. However, the courts have ruled that such quotas are unconstitutional, even though their purpose is commendable. They are, in fact, a form of discrimination called reverse discrimination. This is when companies discriminate against members of a dominant or minority group, for example, whites or males, and it's usually a result of policies, again, designed to correct previous discrimination against minority and disadvantaged groups. Because of this, this policy has been at the center of many debates and lawsuits. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 is also known as the ADA. This act requires employers to give applicants with physical or mental disabilities the same consideration for employment as people without disabilities. Again, it's important to note that the ADA not only protects individuals with obvious physical disabilities, but also safeguards those with less visible conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, epilepsy, and mental illness. Because of this law, many organizations no longer require job applicants to pass physical exams as a condition of employment. Employers are required to provide disabled employees with reasonable accommodations, and I want you to know this term because it's a key part of this law. Reasonable accommodation is any modification or adjustment to a job or work environment that will enable a qualified employee with a disability to perform a central job function, such as making existing facilities accessible and usable by wheelchair-bound individuals. In 2011, that's when the new regulations were introduced that widen the range of these disabilities that were covered by the ADA. And an important piece was that the burden of proof was shifted from the employees to the employers. A manager needs to understand the nature of a job before he or she can find the right person to do it. Part of human resource management is conducting a job analysis and then writing a job description as well as a job specification. Job analysis is a systematic procedure for studying positions to determine their various elements and requirements. That is, you look at what employees do who hold various job titles. If you consider a clerk in a large corporation, there may be 50 kinds of clerk positions, which may all fall in different, which may all differ in terms of the activities that they perform. So it's important to do the analysis first. The job analysis for a particular position typically consists of two parts, which are a job description and a job specification. A job description is a summary of the objectives of the job, the type of work, the responsibilities and duties, the working conditions, and its relationships to other jobs. A job specification is a list of the qualifications required to perform a particular job, such as certain skills, abilities, education, and experience. In addition to requiring certain experience, some companies also list personality characteristics in job specification. The job analysis is not the only basis for recruiting and selecting new employees, and it's also used in other areas of HR management, such as evaluations and the determination of equitable compensation levels. This slide presents the job application areas where the applicants make the most mistakes. The results are based on a survey of over 1,400 CFOs of U.S. companies that have 20 or more employees. As you can see, the top two areas where applicants make the most mistakes are interviews and resumes. So my best advice to you is to make sure somebody else proofs your resume to make sure you don't have errors. And then also do mock interviews. Thomas More has a room where you can practice interviews with the Career Center. Also remember that after an interview, you should always follow up. Contingent workers are also known as temporary workers. So these include part-time and temporary workers, seasonal workers, independent contractors, interns, and co-op students. This will be when you have to do your spiritual learning requirement for graduation. When you apply for positions such as that, you're applying to be a contingent worker. There are about 5.7 million contingent workers in the United States, and most of them are under 25. It's also a really great way to gain experience when you are first out of college and trying to get somebody to hire you before you have the experience. So sometimes people will go to temp agencies to get experience and to get their foot in the door at a company. Companies hire contingent workers for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they hire one when a full-time worker is on leave. For example, if somebody is on maternity leave and the company needs somebody to fill in for them for 3 months. Also during periods of peak demand, such as tax season. So sometimes accounting firms will hire more accountants during tax season. Also, in certain economic times, this is because it's cheaper to hire a temporary worker versus a full-time employee that you have to provide benefits to. So it helps them save on employee benefits as well. And as I mentioned before, it's a way for companies to screen candidates for future employment. Something that might start out as a 90-day or 3 to 6 month temporary job may turn into a full-time employment opportunity if the employer likes you and the position is available. Another aspect of human resource management is training and development of employees. Both training and development are aimed at improving employees' skills and abilities. However, the two are usually differentiated as employee training and development. Employee training is the process of teaching operations and technical employees how to do their present job more efficiently and effectively. The one difference I also want you to know between training and development is that because of the definition I just gave you for training, this is typically focused on short-term skills. So for example, if a company wants you to learn a new computer software program, they might send you to an off-site training to gain that skill immediately. Development, however, focuses on long-term abilities. So for example, a lot of companies will have leadership programs where they will select certain employees to participate in them. And then, it might be a 2-year leadership program where these employees get to interact and study under current leaders of the organization. Networking means establishing and maintaining contacts with key managers both inside and outside the organization. And then you use those contacts to develop relationships. This is really important. For example, when I was in the flavor industry, I was part of an organization that was known as the WFFC, which was the Women in Flavor and Fragrance Commerce. And because I was part of this organization, I was able to meet other people and leaders that were at other flavor companies. So it was really good to have contacts outside of the organization with which I worked. A lot of times networking can also help people find jobs. A lot of times if you know somebody, you might get the interview. Although you're not guaranteed to get the job, at least you get an opportunity to present yourself and your skills. Mentors are managers who supervise, coach, and guide selected lower-level employees by acting as corporate sponsors. This means that they will give you opportunities to grow within the company and give you advice as you do grow throughout the company. Another important job of human resource management is appraising performance on the job. Performance appraisal is the evaluation of employees' current and potential levels of performance to allow managers to make unbiased human resource decisions. The process has three main objectives. The first is managers use performance appraisals to let workers know how well they're doing and how they can improve in the future. Secondly, a performance appraisal provides an effective basis for distributing rewards such as pay raise, promotions, and bonuses. And finally, performance appraisals helps the organization monitor its employee selection, training, and development activities. If large numbers of employees continually perform below expectations, the firm may need to revise its selection process or strengthen its training and development activities that we discussed previously. A somewhat newer method of performance appraisal is known as a 360-degree review. This gives managers opinions from people at different levels to get a more accurate idea of a worker's ability. So for example, instead of just your boss reviewing you, if you are in middle management, you may have your direct reports evaluate you, some of your customers or suppliers that you work with. This gives you a much more comprehensive view of your strengths and your opportunities for improvement and growth. It's important if you're ever in a management position to realize that some mistakes can occur in the performance appraisal process. This slide presents some of the problems that can occur while reviewing employees. One of them is the contrast effect. This is comparing one employee to another. I want you to think for a minute about how fair you think it is that your own performance is appraised based on the work of others on your team versus just being judged on the merit of your own work by itself. Another effect is the halo or horn effect. This is allowing performances in specific areas to unfairly influence the overall performance evaluation. Managers need to be careful about this. For example, let's say you performed great for the first 9 months of the year and then you messed up one customer order in October. If your manager focuses on that one item that you messed up on in October, they are being influenced by the halo or horn effect. In this case, the horn effect, meaning they're focusing on the negative mistake, the one mistake that you made, and allowing that to unfairly influence the overall performance evaluation. The last one I want you to know is the similar to me effect. This is when managers sometimes rate hires more generously to those that you feel are more like you. So you have to be aware that these biases and mistakes can happen and try to avoid them. A commission is a payment that is a percentage of a sales revenue. Sales representatives and sales managers often are paid entirely through commission or a combination of commission and salary. Bonus plans are extra pay for accomplishing or surpassing certain objectives. There are typically two types of bonuses that can be offered. They're monetary and cashless. Money is always an option, so that's just pay in cash, right? But beyond what you make as your salary. Cashless rewards include things such as thank you notes, appreciation notes, giving families movie tickets or trips, or even gift certificates. Another type of incentive plan is a profit sharing plan. Profit sharing is the distribution of a percentage of a firm's profit among its employees. The idea is to motivate employees to work effectively by giving them a stake in the company's financial success. The last two types of pay systems that I want you to know for this class are gain sharing plans and stock options. Gain sharing is a type of incentive payment which is in addition to wages, salaries, or commission. The incentive payments are rewards for outstanding job performance. The size of a payment will typically depend on the firm's earnings and at time on the particular employee's length of service with the firm. Firms sometimes offer incentives to employees who exceed specific sales or production goals, which is a practice called gain sharing. For example, 12 New Jersey hospitals used a pilot gain sharing program to award financial incentives to physicians for achieving quality and efficiency goals. The 3-year program, which paid out nearly $19 million to doctors, reduced cost per admission by 8.5%, saving the hospital $113 million. Another option that is popular in today's business environment are stock options. This is the right to purchase stock in the company at a specific price over a specific period of time. Often, this gives employees the right to buy stock cheaply despite increases that are happening in the price of the stock. For example, if over the course of his employment, a worker receives options to buy 10,000 shares of the company's stock at $10 each, and the price eventually grows to 100, the employee can use these options to buy 10,000 shares, which are now worth $1 million, for only $100,000. Fringe benefits are items such as sick leave, vacation pay, pension and health plans that provide additional compensation to employees beyond their base wages. In 1929, fringe benefits accounted for less than 2% of payroll cost, but today it's about 30%. Healthcare has been the most significant increase in this fringe benefit cost. The rising cost of healthcare and the cost of employee-provided health insurance is unsustainable in the long term. This requires both management and employees to create systems that keep costs down but still provide meaningful coverage. This could include employee wellness programs and/or higher deductibles that are occurring in some plans already. This slide just shows some of the fringe benefits that companies offer, such as getting a company car or having access to recreation facilities. Some companies have daycare for kids or legal counseling, dental and eye care, and then short or compressed work weeks, which we'll talk about further in a minute. Flexible benefit plans, such as a cafeteria style benefit, they are when an employee receives a predetermined amount of benefit dollars and may allocate those dollars to various categories of benefits in the way that best fits his or her needs. Some flexible benefit plans offer a broad array of benefit options, including health care, dental care, life insurance, free meals at work. Some of them even have doggy daycare, long-term disability coverage, and so on. So it depends on the type of firm that you work for. Well, the type of firm you work for will determine what type of soft benefits you can choose as part of the cafeteria plan. This slide presents a comparison of the number of vacation days given and used per year in different countries. France leads with the average of 38 vacation days per year, and if you look at the US, we tie for last with just 17 days. Even though we come in last with only these 17 days, an interesting fact is that most Americans don't even use these 17 days. I want you to think about what impact does this number of days of vacation have on recruiting at an international level, right? If you think about it, some of you might say it doesn't have much of an impact. However, internationally, potential candidates would be comparing between different countries, especially if they're from one country that offers a higher number of vacation days, such as Italy, France, or Germany. So this may actually have an impact on the ability of an organization to recruit. The needs and lifestyles of today's workforce are changing. Dual income families make up a much larger share of the workforce than ever before, and women are one of its fastest growing sectors. Flex time is a system in which employees set their own work hours within a certain limit determined by employers. Typically, the firm establishes two bands of time. One is the core time, which we'll talk about on the next slide, where all employees must be at work, and the flex time, when employees may choose whether to be at work. The only condition is that every employee must work a total of 8 hours a day. Another option is compressed work weeks. This is where employees work the full number of work hours, but in fewer days than the standard number of days. For example, it's common for nurses to work 3 12-hour shifts. That's 36 hours, and that's considered full-time for them. Other companies may allow you to work 4 10-hour days and have Mondays or Fridays off. Another option that's a flexible scheduling plan is job sharing. This is sometimes also referred to as work sharing, and this is an arrangement where two people share one full-time position. One job sharer may work from 8 a.m. to noon, while the other one works from 1 to 5, or they may even alternate work days. Job sharing is different than part-time work because two people share one single position, which is generally more skilled than a part-time position would be. Job sharing can be very difficult to orchestrate at the beginning, but it may contribute a greater job satisfaction and ease in creating that work-life balance. When the supply of employees is predicted to be greater than the demand, the firm must take steps to reduce the size of its workforce. When the oversupply is expected to be temporary, companies can sometimes implement a hiring freeze or cut back on employee hours or lay off some employees. However, there are also times when, as a last resort, unnecessary employees are sometimes simply fired. This is if cause can be found, such as a failure to measure up to a specified performance standard. In such cases, companies may take care to document the employee's performance and should give them warning that the performance is subpar long before a pink slip is handed out. However, because of its negative impact, this method is generally only used when absolutely necessary. It has also become more difficult because of all of the laws that have prevented certain types of determination for certain acts. This concludes Chapter 11. Please let me know if you have any questions.